She pitied the broke traveler, not knowing he was the billionaire who paid her salary. Before we begin, leave a comment telling us which city you're watching from. And don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10 at the end. Enjoy the story. Manhattan had a way of turning rain into theater. The storm that hit the city that Tuesday afternoon was no exception. Inside Café Lumière, the atmosphere was warm, dry, and meticulously curated. Soft jazz played through hidden speakers. Hannah Collins moved between tables with practiced grace, balancing a tray of espresso drinks and pastries. She had been working at Café Lumière for almost 2 years now, long enough to recognize the regulars, memorize their orders, and understand the unspoken hierarchy of the place. There were the Wall Street executives who tipped well but barely looked at her, the socialites who treated the cafe like a runway, more interested in being photographed than in the food. Hannah was 26, with kind eyes and dark hair she kept pulled back in a simple ponytail. She had dreams, of course. Hannah wanted to open her own place someday, something completely different from Café Lumière. She had been saving for 3 years, tucking away whatever she could after rent, utilities, groceries, and the occasional helping hand to her mother back in Ohio. The rain intensified. Thunder rolled across the sky. Inside, the cafe's clientele barely noticed. Then the door opened. The conversation in the room didn't exactly stop, but it shifted. Heads turned, eyes narrowed. A man stood in the doorway, absolutely soaked. Water dripped from his hair, his clothes, his worn backpack. He wore old jeans, a faded hoodie, and sneakers that had seen better days. His face was obscured partially by wet hair plastered to his forehead. He looked lost, cold, and entirely out of place. A woman in a Chanel suit audibly scoffed. A man in expensive glasses whispered something to his companion, and they both smirked. The hostess, a young woman named Melissa who took her gatekeeping duties very seriously, moved toward him with an expression that suggested she was about to escort him back outside. Hannah acted on instinct.
She set down her tray, grabbed a clean towel from behind the counter, and walked directly to the man before Melissa could reach him. She handed him the towel with a gentle smile. "Welcome," she said. "Let's get you dried off." The man looked at her with surprise, as if kindness was something he hadn't expected to find here. His eyes were striking, a deep gray blue that stood in stark contrast to his disheveled appearance. There was intelligence in those eyes, and something else. Exhaustion, maybe, or loneliness. "Thank you," he said quietly. His voice was soft, almost apologetic. Hannah gestured to an empty booth near the back, away from the windows and the staring customers. "Come sit. I'll bring you something warm." She didn't wait for Melissa's approval. She didn't ask her manager. She simply led the man to the booth and brought him a menu. Within minutes, she returned with a cappuccino made exactly the way she liked hers, with extra foam and a dusting of cinnamon. She added a slice of apple cinnamon torte, the cafe's most expensive dessert. "On the house," she said, setting it down in front of him. "I can't accept this," the man protested. "I can pay." Hannah noticed his hands were shaking slightly from the cold. She shook her head. "Please, you look like you've had a rough day. Let me do this." She reached into her apron pocket and discreetly slipped a $5 bill under the napkin beside his plate. It was money she couldn't really afford to give away, money she had been planning to add to her savings jar. But something about this man's presence moved her. He looked like someone who had been invisible for too long. "I'm Tyler," he said, looking up at her with genuine gratitude. "Tyler Reed." "Hannah," she replied. "And you're welcome here, Tyler. Take your time." As she walked away to tend to other tables, she could feel eyes on her, disapproving eyes, judgmental eyes. She knew what they were thinking. that she was naive, that she was wasting cafe resources on someone who clearly couldn't afford to be there, that she should know better than to encourage people like him to stay. She didn't care. Tyler sat in that booth for over an hour, slowly drinking his cappuccino, eating the torte in small, deliberate bites. He dried off with the towel. He seemed to be absorbing the warmth of the place, letting it seep into his bones. And he watched Hannah work with a curiosity that she found oddly comforting rather than creepy. There was nothing predatory in his gaze. He watched her the way someone might watch a documentary about something beautiful and rare. When the rain finally slowed to a drizzle, Tyler stood up, left the $5 bill she had given him on the table along with a 10 of his own, and approached her at the counter. "Thank you," he said. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," Hannah replied, "but I wanted to." "Why?" Tyler asked. "You don't know me." Hannah considered the question. Outside, the city was returning to its normal rhythm. Inside, the cafe's regular customers had already forgotten about the wet stranger who had briefly interrupted their afternoon. "Because everyone deserves kindness," Hannah said simply, "especially on days when the world feels unkind." Tyler nodded slowly, as if he was committing her words to memory. He pulled his backpack onto his shoulder and headed toward the door. Before leaving, he turned back one last time. "I'll remember this," he said. Hannah smiled. "Stay dry out there." She had no way of knowing that this moment, this small act of compassion, would completely change her life. She had no idea that Tyler Reed was not who he appeared to be, and she certainly didn't know that the man she had just helped was actually Tyler Ashford, the billionaire founder and owner of the very cafe where she worked, the chain of luxury establishments that bore his carefully hidden legacy. All she knew was that she had done what felt right. And sometimes, that's all that matters. Tyler came back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. At first, Hannah thought it was coincidence. Manhattan had thousands of coffee shops, but people were creatures of habit. Maybe he lived nearby. Maybe he liked the cappuccino. Maybe he just needed a warm place to sit. She didn't ask, and he didn't explain.
He would arrive in the late afternoon, always looking slightly out of place among the polished clientele, always choosing the same booth in the back. He ordered carefully, as if calculating every dollar. A regular coffee, black. Sometimes a muffin. Once he asked if they had any day-old pastries they sold at a discount. Hannah felt her heart crack a little at that question. She began to look forward to his visits. There was something calming about Tyler's presence. While other customers snapped their fingers for her attention, treated her like a servant, or talked through her as if she were a piece of furniture, Tyler always said please and thank you. He asked her how her day was going, and actually waited for the answer. He remembered small details she mentioned in passing, that her mother called every Sunday, that she was saving for her own business, that she loved old books more than new ones. One afternoon, during her break, she sat down across from him uninvited. Tyler looked up from the notebook he was writing in, surprised but not displeased. "You're always writing," Hannah observed. "What is it, a journal?" "Something like that," Tyler said, closing the notebook. "Just thoughts, observations." "About what?" Tyler hesitated. "About people, mostly. How they move through the world, what they value, what they overlook." Hannah leaned back in the booth. "Sounds philosophical." "Maybe," Tyler said with a small smile. "Or maybe I just have too much time on my hands." Over the following weeks, their conversations deepened. Hannah learned that Tyler was new to New York, trying to figure out how to navigate the city on a tight budget. He asked her advice constantly. Where could he find affordable meals? Which subway routes were most reliable? Were there thrift stores that sold decent clothes? How did people survive here without going broke? Hannah found herself becoming his unofficial guide to the New York that existed beneath the glossy surface, the New York that tourists never saw, that people with money never needed to know. She showed him how to find happy hour specials, how to use grocery store apps for coupons, which bodegas had the best prices on produce. She took him to a thrift store in Brooklyn where she bought most of her own clothes, watching with amusement as he tried on jackets and sweaters with genuine concentration. "This one?" Tyler asked, modeling a gray wool coat that actually fit him perfectly. Hannah tilted her head, considering. "It's good. Classic. Makes you look less like a lost tourist." "Is that what I look like?" "A little," Hannah admitted, "but in an endearing way." Tyler bought the coat, along with 2 shirts and a pair of jeans, and Hannah noticed that he seemed genuinely happy about the prices. She taught him how to shop at Trader Joe's, how to make meals that cost less than $10, how to find free entertainment in the city, concerts in parks, museum days with suggested donations, walking tours that asked for tips but didn't require them. They started cooking together at her tiny apartment in Queens, a 5th-floor walk-up with a kitchen barely big enough for 1 person, let alone 2. But they managed, bumping into each other, laughing when Tyler accidentally added salt instead of sugar, working together to create simple meals that tasted better than anything either of them had eaten in expensive restaurants. Hannah showed him how to make her grandmother's chili, how to stretch a rotisserie chicken into 4 different meals, how to bake bread that made the whole apartment smell like home. Tyler absorbed everything with the enthusiasm of someone discovering a completely new world. And maybe he was.
"It sounds perfect," Tyler said. "You'll make it happen." Hannah shrugged. "Someday. It takes money to start a business. Right now, I'm just trying to save enough for the security deposit on a better apartment." Tyler was quiet for a moment. What if someone wanted to invest? Help you get started? Hannah laughed. Who would invest in a bookstore in the age of Amazon? It's not exactly a lucrative business model. "Maybe it's not about money," Tyler said. "Maybe it's about creating something that matters." Hannah looked at him curiously. "You're an idealist. Is that a bad thing?" "No," Hannah said softly. "It's rare. That's all." As the weeks passed, Hannah realized she was falling for him. Not in the dramatic movie scene way she had always imagined love would happen. It was quieter than that, more gradual. It was in the way Tyler listened to her, really listened, as if her words were the most important thing in the world. It was in the way he laughed at her terrible jokes, the way he remembered how she took her coffee, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. Her friends were skeptical. Tyler didn't have a clear job or career path. He was vague about his past, about where he came from, about his plans for the future. He dressed in thrift store clothes and counted pennies and seemed almost too good to be true in his humility and kindness. "Be careful," her friend Jessica warned over drinks one night. "You don't really know him." "I know enough," Hannah insisted. "He's a good person." "How do you know?" "Because I've seen how he treats people," Hannah said. "He's kind to everyone, not just to me, to waiters, to subway performers, to the homeless guy who sits outside my building. You can't fake that." "People fake things all the time," Jessica said gently. "I just don't want you to get hurt." But Hannah couldn't protect her heart anymore. It was already too late. She had fallen completely, wholly, terrifyingly in love with Tyler Reed, the gentleman who had walked into Café Lumière on a rainy day and somehow changed everything.
What she didn't know was that Tyler was falling just as hard. Harder, maybe. Because Tyler had lived a life where everyone wanted something from him. Everyone had an angle, an agenda, a price. Hannah was the first person in years who wanted nothing except his company, who valued his thoughts more than his bank account, who taught him that joy could be found in a $2 bottle of wine and homemade pasta. He knew he should tell her the truth. Every day he planned to. Every day he lost his nerve, because he was terrified that the moment she knew who he really was, everything would change. The ease between them would evaporate. She would see him differently. She would question every moment they had shared, wondering if it had all been some kind of game. So he kept quiet, and he hated himself for it. But not enough to stop. Tyler Ashford had built an empire on the principle that people revealed their true nature when they thought no one important was watching. His company, Ashford Hospitality Group, owned over 40 luxury establishments across the country. Hotels, restaurants, cafes that catered to people who measured worth in zeros and commas. He had inherited his father's business at 25 and transformed it into something bigger, sharper, more profitable. At 32, he was worth more than most people could imagine. He was also miserable. The kind of miserable that money couldn't fix. The kind that came from being surrounded by people who saw him as a transaction rather than a person. Every conversation was strategic. Every relationship was transactional. Every smile hid an invoice. 6 weeks ago, he had walked into his flagship location, Café Lumière in Manhattan, disguised as someone ordinary. He had wanted to see how his staff treated regular customers. He had wanted to observe the culture he had created from the ground level. He had expected to find inefficiencies, training gaps, areas for improvement. He had found Hannah instead, and nothing had been the same since. Now, sitting in her cramped apartment, helping her chop vegetables for a stir-fry they would make together, Tyler felt more at home than he had ever in his penthouse overlooking Central Park.
The apartment was tiny, a bedroom barely big enough for a full-size bed, a living room that doubled as dining room and office, a kitchen where they had to take turns standing, but it was filled with warmth. Books lined every available surface, plants hung in the windows, photographs of Hannah with her mother, her friends, her life covered the walls. "You're quiet tonight," Hannah said, glancing at him as she stirred the vegetables in the wok. Tyler forced a smile. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how lucky I am." Hannah laughed. "To be eating budget stir-fry in an apartment the size of a closet?" "Yes," Tyler said seriously. "Exactly that." Hannah set down the spatula and turned to face him. "Tyler, are you okay? You've seemed off lately." This was it, the opening he had been waiting for, the moment to tell her everything, to explain who he was, why he had lied, what he had been afraid of. The words were right there, queued up and ready. "I'm fine," he said instead. "Just tired." The moment passed. The lie held. That night, after they had eaten and cleaned up and Hannah had fallen asleep on the couch during a movie they were watching, Tyler sat in the dim light of her apartment and stared at his phone. He had 73 unread messages, 15 from his executive assistant, 20 from his board members, 38 from business associates, investors, people who needed decisions or signatures or his presence at events he was supposed to attend. He had been essentially AWOL from his own life for weeks. His staff was covering for him, making excuses, running the business in his absence. They thought he was dealing with a personal crisis. They weren't entirely wrong. Tyler looked at Hannah, curled up on the couch, her face peaceful in sleep. She was wearing sweatpants and one of his thrift store shirts that she had claimed as her own. Her dark hair was messy. She had a small scar above her left eyebrow that she had gotten falling off a bike when she was 7. She snored softly, just a little, a sound he found unbearably endearing. He was in love with her.
Completely, irrevocably in love. And he was lying to her about everything that mattered. The next morning, Hannah introduced him to her friends, Jessica and Marika, 2 women she had known since college. They met for brunch at a diner in Astoria, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that cost $1. Jessica was immediately suspicious.
She asked Tyler pointed questions about his work, his plans, his background. Tyler navigated the interrogation carefully, sticking to vague truths and strategic omissions. He could see Hannah getting defensive on his behalf, and he felt terrible about that, too. After brunch, when Hannah went to the restroom, Jessica leaned across the table. "I don't know what your deal is," she said quietly, "but Hannah is one of the best people I know. If you're playing some kind of game with her, if you hurt her, you'll regret it." Tyler met her eyes. "I would never intentionally hurt her." "Intentionally" is doing a lot of work in that sentence, Jessica said. She wasn't wrong. Tyler's other life kept intruding in small ways. His assistant, David, called constantly, asking about contracts that needed signatures, decisions that couldn't wait, a crisis with a property in Chicago that required his immediate attention. Tyler handled everything remotely, speaking in hushed tones when Hannah was in the shower or asleep, signing documents that David messengered to him at odd locations. One afternoon, he almost got caught. Hannah had come home early from the cafe, and Tyler was in the middle of a video conference with his board of directors discussing a $20 million acquisition. He had been using her bedroom, thinking he had another hour. When he heard her key in the lock, he ended the call abruptly, closed his laptop, and tried to look casual. Hannah poked her head in. "Hey, you okay? I thought I heard voices." "Just watching a documentary," Tyler said, hating how easily the lie came. Hannah smiled. "Nerd. I'm going to take a quick shower, and then we can start dinner." After she left, Tyler sat on the edge of her bed, his hands shaking.
This was insane. He was living a double life, lying to someone he loved, maintaining an unsustainable charade. He needed to tell her, today, now. But then Hannah emerged from the shower, her face bright, talking about a customer at the cafe who had left her $100 tip, how she was putting it all in her savings jar, how she was getting closer to her dream. "That's amazing," Tyler said, pulling her into a hug. And once again, he said nothing. The guilt was becoming unbearable. Tyler began leaving clues, almost subconsciously. He would mention details about business that someone in his supposed position shouldn't know. He would catch himself before suggesting expensive restaurants or experiences, then have to backtrack. He made mistakes with money, occasionally paying for things too easily, then scrambling to make it seem like he was stretching his budget. Hannah noticed. She wasn't oblivious. She asked questions that got a little sharper, looked at him sometimes with an expression that suggested she was trying to solve a puzzle. One night, lying in bed together in the dark, Hannah asked the question that terrified him most. "Tyler, do I really know you?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, sometimes it feels like you're holding something back. Like there's a part of you I'm not seeing." Tyler's heart raced. "Everyone holds parts of themselves back." "Not like this," Hannah said. "Sometimes I look at you and I see someone completely different from who you pretend to be." "Who do you see?" Hannah was quiet for a long time. "Someone who doesn't belong here, with me, in this life." Tyler pulled her closer. "I belong exactly where I want to be." But it was another non-answer, another evasion, and Hannah, he could tell, was beginning to lose patience with his secrets. The truth was coming whether he was ready for it or not, and Tyler knew with a certainty that made him sick that when it finally arrived, it would destroy everything beautiful they had built together. He just didn't know it would happen so soon. It was a Sunday morning, the kind of crisp autumn day that made New York feel like a postcard. Hannah had the day off from the cafe, and she and Tyler had planned to spend it wandering through used bookstores in the West Village, one of their favorite activities. Tyler loved watching her browse through old books, running her fingers over worn spines, reading passages aloud when something struck her as beautiful or true. They had stopped at a newsstand near Washington Square Park so Hannah could buy a bottle of water. Tyler waited outside, checking his phone, responding to an urgent message from David about a contract that needed his signature by Monday morning. He was so focused on the screen that he didn't notice Hannah had gone silent inside the newsstand. She stood frozen in front of the magazine rack. Forbes, the latest issue, and there, on the cover, was Tyler's face. Not Tyler Reed, the humble backpacker who counted pennies and wore thrift store clothes. Tyler Ashford, billionaire hospitality mogul, looking polished and powerful in an expensive suit, standing in front of Café Lumière with the headline, "The Invisible Empire: How Tyler Ashford Built a Luxury Brand by Staying Out of the Spotlight." Hannah's hand started shaking. She picked up the magazine with trembling fingers, opened it to the feature article. There were more photos. Tyler at charity galas, Tyler shaking hands with politicians, Tyler accepting awards, Tyler, her Tyler, described as one of the most influential entrepreneurs of his generation, worth an estimated $2.3 billion. The magazine slipped from her hands, falling to the floor. The newsstand owner looked at her with concern. "Miss, you okay?" Hannah couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. She stumbled out of the store, past Tyler, who looked up from his phone with a smile that died the moment he saw her face. "Hannah?" She kept walking, fast, then faster. She heard Tyler calling her name, heard his footsteps behind her, but she couldn't stop. She needed air, she needed space, she needed to think. Tyler caught up to her at the fountain in the center of the park. He grabbed her arm gently. "Hannah, please, stop."
She spun around, and the look on her face made him step back. "Don't touch me. I can explain." "Explain?" Hannah's voice was rising, attracting attention from people nearby. She didn't care. "Explain what, exactly? That you've been lying to me for 2 months? That everything between us has been a lie?" "It hasn't been a lie." "You're a billionaire," Hannah said, her voice breaking. "You own Café Lumière. You own the place where I work, where I've been working, serving your customers, while you, what, played dress-up? Pretended to be poor? Watched me teach you how to use coupons like it was some kind of joke?" "It was never a joke," Tyler said desperately. "I came in that day because I wanted to see how people treated someone who looked ordinary. I wanted to see who had real kindness. And you, Hannah, you were the only one, the only person who saw me as human. So this was a test? I was some kind of experiment? No, God, no. It started that way, maybe, but then I got to know you, and I fell in love with you, really in love. Not with an idea of you, but with who you actually are." Hannah laughed, but it was a terrible sound, hollow and hurt. "You don't even know who I actually am, Tyler, because I've been performing too. I've been the girl who's so grateful for your attention, so happy to teach you about my little poor person life. God, you must have been laughing at me the whole time." "I have never laughed at you. All those times I gave you advice about saving money, about finding cheap meals, about making ends meet, you must have thought it was hilarious." "I thought it was beautiful," Tyler said, his voice raw. "You showed me what it means to find joy in simple things. You taught me that value isn't about price tags. You made me feel more alive than I've felt in 10 years. Don't," Hannah said, tears streaming down her face now. "Don't try to make this romantic. You lied to me. Every single day you lied." "I know. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you so many times." "But you didn't," Hannah interrupted. "You chose to keep lying.
Every day, every moment we spent together, you chose the lie. Because I was afraid of losing you. Well, congratulations, Hannah said bitterly. You lost me anyway. She turned to walk away, and Tyler grabbed her hand. Hannah, please, let me make this right. How? How could you possibly make this right? Tyler was quiet. He didn't have an answer. Hannah pulled her hand away. I need time. I need space. I need you to leave me alone. For how long? I don't know, Hannah said. Maybe forever. She walked away then, leaving Tyler standing alone in the park, watching the only woman he had ever truly loved disappear into the crowd. The next 72 hours were a nightmare. Hannah called in sick to work, something she had never done in 2 years of employment. She stayed in her apartment, crying, then angry, then numb. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from Tyler. She deleted them all without reading. Flowers arrived at her door, elaborate, expensive arrangements that looked ridiculous in her tiny apartment. She gave them to her neighbor. Then came the really terrible part. Tyler's family got involved. His mother, Patricia Ashford, showed up at Hannah's apartment unannounced, wearing a Burberry coat and an expression of polite concern that barely masked her condescension. She offered Hannah money to go away quietly. $500,000, she said, as if that was a reasonable price for a broken heart. Hannah slammed the door in her face. Tyler's assistant, David, tried a softer approach. He sent Hannah an email explaining Tyler's side, how isolated he had been, how genuine his feelings were, how much he was suffering. Hannah deleted it. The worst was a package that arrived from Tyler's lawyer. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a note, "For your bookstore dream. No strings attached." Hannah tore the check into pieces. She felt humiliated, used, stupid for believing that someone like Tyler could actually care about someone like her. Every moment they had shared now felt tainted, contaminated by his deception. Had any of it been real?
Had he actually enjoyed their cheap dinners and thrift store shopping? Or had he just been slumming, playing at poverty like it was some kind of game? Her friends rallied around her. Jessica brought wine and ice cream and let Hannah cry on her shoulder. Marika offered to key Tyler's car, which made Hannah laugh for the first time in days. They told her she deserved better, that she hadn't done anything wrong, that Tyler was the one who had messed up. But in the quiet moments alone, Hannah couldn't stop thinking about him, about the way he had looked at her when she taught him to make bread, about how he had listened to her dreams as if they mattered, about the morning he had made her coffee exactly right without asking how she took it, because he had been paying attention all along. Had that been real? Any of it? A week after the revelation, Hannah finally read one of Tyler's messages. It was simple, direct, and it broke something in her that had barely begun to heal. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I hurt you. But everything I felt for you was real. The person I was with you, that was the most honest version of myself I've been in years. I fell in love with your kindness, your strength, your beautiful way of seeing the world. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to trust you with the truth. I'm sorry for everything." Hannah sat on her floor, holding her phone, crying again. Because the terrible thing was, she believed him. And that made everything so much worse. 3 weeks passed in a strange, hollow rhythm. Hannah went back to work at Café Lumière, which felt like a cruel joke now. Every detail of the place took on new meaning. The expensive light fixtures, the imported coffee beans, the designer furniture. She had been working in Tyler's establishment all along, earning minimum wage plus tips while he owned everything around her. The other staff members had no idea. To them, Hannah was just quiet these days, less cheerful than usual. They attributed it to stress or fatigue. Only the manager, Mr. Chen, seemed to sense something deeper was wrong. He assigned her the easier sections, didn't push her to smile more, let her have space. Hannah was grateful for that small mercy. She spent her breaks outside, sitting on a bench 2 blocks away, watching the city move around her. New York was indifferent to heartbreak. The same people rushed past. The same vendors sold their pretzels and coffee. The same pigeons fought over the same crumbs. Nothing had changed, except everything had changed. Tyler, she learned through Jessica's careful internet stalking, had returned to his public life. There were photos of him at business events, looking polished and distant. The articles described his recent absence from the social scene, speculating about health issues or a secret project. None of them came close to the truth. He hadn't tried to contact her in 2 weeks. Hannah told herself she was relieved. This was what she had asked for: space, distance, time to heal. But at night, alone in her apartment, she missed him so much it physically hurt. She missed the small things most, the way he had laughed at her terrible jokes, how he had hummed while cooking, the feel of his hand in hers while they walked through the city, the conversations that stretched for hours about everything and nothing, the safety she had felt with him, the sense of being truly seen and valued. But how much of that had been real? Hannah tried to separate the Tyler she had known from the Tyler Ashford of magazine covers and business empires. Were they the same person? Could they be? One evening, her mother called. Patricia Collins had raised Hannah alone after her father died when Hannah was 6, working 2 jobs to keep them afloat, teaching Hannah about resilience and dignity and the kind of wealth that had nothing to do with money. "You've been quiet lately," her mother said. "Want to tell me what's wrong?" Hannah hadn't planned to explain, but the story came pouring out. Tyler, the lies, the revelation, the confusion she felt now. Her mother listened without interrupting. When Hannah finished, there was a long pause. "Do you love him?" her mother finally asked. "I don't know," Hannah said. "I loved who I thought he was." "Baby, we all do that. We fall in love with versions of people. The question is whether the real person underneath is someone you can love too."
"I don't even know who the real person is." Her mother made a thoughtful sound. "When he was with you, did he treat you well?" "Yes." "Did he make you feel valued?" "Yes." "Did he share things about himself that seemed true, even if he left out other parts?" Hannah thought about their conversations. Tyler had talked about feeling isolated, about wanting genuine connections, about being tired of people who only saw him for what he could provide. Those things had been true, she realized. He had just left out the context. "Yes," Hannah said quietly. "Then maybe," her mother said gently, "the person you fell in love with was real, just incomplete." "But he lied to me, Mom, for months." "He did, and that was wrong. The question is whether you can forgive that, whether the relationship you had is worth fighting for, despite how it started." "I don't know if I can trust him again." "Trust is something you build, honey. It's not all or nothing. If he's willing to do the work, if he's genuinely sorry, if he shows up for you in the ways that matter, then maybe trust can grow back. But only if you want it to." "What if I'm just being naive? What if my friends are right and I should walk away?" "Only you can answer that," her mother said. "But I'll tell you what I've learned. Life is long and complicated. People make mistakes, sometimes terrible ones. The measure of a person isn't whether they mess up. It's what they do afterward." After they hung up, Hannah sat with those words for a long time. The next day at work, something unexpected happened. A customer, a regular named Mrs. Pemberton, An elderly woman who came in every Tuesday for Earl Grey and scones asked to speak with Hannah privately. They sat together in a quiet corner. "I need to tell you something," Mrs. Pemberton said. "I'm on the board of Ashford Hospitality Group. I've known Tyler since he was a boy." Hannah stiffened. "If this is some kind of intervention—"
"It's not," Mrs. Pemberton interrupted gently. "I'm here against Tyler's wishes, actually. He would be furious if he knew I was talking to you. But I think you deserve to know some things." She explained that Tyler had grown up in an environment where everyone wanted something from him, where relationships were transactional and conditional, where he learned early that his worth was measured in dollars, not in character. When his father died and left him the company, Mrs. Pemberton said, Tyler was 25. Too young, really. He handled it well, grew the business, made smart decisions, but he became very isolated, very lonely. I watched him go through relationships that were clearly about his money, his connections, his status. None of them were real. "What does this have to do with me?" Anna asked. Mrs. Pemberton smiled. In the last board meeting, before Tyler disappeared from public life, he gave a speech about wanting to understand what we were really offering customers. Not just luxury, he said, but human connection. He said he was tired of creating spaces where people came to be seen rather than to feel welcome. He wanted to understand what was missing. And he decided to do that by lying to me? He made a mistake, Mrs. Pemberton acknowledged, a significant one. But Hannah, in 40 years of knowing that boy, I have never seen him happier than in the reports David gave us about his time with you. Tyler was alive again, present, genuine. Hannah felt tears threatening. That doesn't excuse what he did. No, it doesn't, but it might explain it. And it might be worth considering whether the person he was with you, kind, humble, present, is closer to who he wants to be than the person he was before. After Mrs. Pemberton left, Hannah went through the rest of her shift in a daze. That night, she did something she had been avoiding. She looked up articles about Tyler Ashford. Not the puff pieces about his wealth, but interviews where he talked about his work. She found one from 3 years ago where he discussed his philosophy about hospitality. Real luxury, he had said, isn't about expense. It's about making people feel valued. My goal is to create spaces where people remember not what they bought, but how they felt. Hannah closed her laptop and stared at the wall of her apartment. The Tyler she had known had valued her, had made her feel seen, had treated simple moments like they mattered more than any expensive experience. Maybe her mother was right. Maybe the person she had fallen in love with was real, just incomplete. The question was, could she forgive the deception to find out? Hannah made a decision, not about Tyler, not yet, but about herself. She requested a meeting with Mr. Chen and gave her notice at Café Lumière. She explained that she needed a change, that she had been there long enough, that it was time to pursue other opportunities. Mr. Chen accepted graciously, told her she had been one of their best employees, and wished her well. Hannah didn't mention that working in Tyler's cafe had become unbearable, that every shift felt like a reminder of deception, that she needed to reclaim her life on her own terms. She picked up extra shifts at a diner in Queens, the kind of place where she had taken Tyler for their first cheap breakfast together. The work was harder, the tips were smaller, but it was hers, uncomplicated. During her free time, she started seriously planning for her bookstore cafe. She created spreadsheets, researched locations, looked into small business loans. If Tyler's deception had taught her anything, it was that she couldn't wait for life to happen. She had to make it happen herself. She was sitting in a coffee shop, not Café Lumière,
working on her business plan, when someone sat down across from her. Tyler. He looked different, thinner, tired. His hair was longer than she remembered, and there were shadows under his eyes that made him look older than 32. He wasn't wearing expensive clothes, Hannah noted, just jeans and a plain sweater, the same kind of things he had worn when they were together. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I asked Jessica where you might be. If you want me to leave, I will." Hannah closed her laptop slowly. She should tell him to leave, should protect herself, should maintain the boundaries she had worked so hard to establish. But she had questions, so many questions. "Why now?" she asked. Tyler ran a hand through his hair. "Because I can't do this anymore. The distance, the silence. I need to know if there's any chance you might forgive me. And if there isn't, I need to hear you say it so I can start trying to move on." Hannah studied him. "You look terrible." "I feel terrible," Tyler said. "I haven't slept properly in weeks. I can't eat. I can't think. I ruined the best thing that ever happened to me, and I don't know how to fix it." "You can't fix it," Hannah said. "Not the way it was. I know. So what do you want from me?" Tyler leaned forward, his gray-blue eyes intense. "I want honesty from both of us. I want to answer every question you have with complete truth. I want to tell you things about myself I've never told anyone. And then I want to know if there's any part of you that can see past what I did to who I actually am." Hannah felt her heart racing. "And who are you actually?" Tyler took a breath. "I'm someone who was taught early that people couldn't be trusted, that everyone wanted something. I'm someone who built walls so high that I couldn't see over them anymore. I'm someone who is desperately lonely in rooms full of people. I'm someone who walked into a cafe on a rainy day expecting to find nothing and found everything instead." He paused, his voice getting rougher. "I'm someone who fell in love with a woman who taught him that kindness isn't weakness, that joy doesn't require money, that genuine connection is the only luxury that actually matters. I'm someone who made the worst mistake of his life by not trusting that woman with the truth, and I'm someone who will regret that for the rest of my life." Hannah felt tears on her face. "Why didn't you just tell me?" "Because I was a coward," Tyler said simply. "Because every day I told myself I would, and every day I convinced myself that I needed just one more day of being Tyler Reed instead of Tyler Ashford. Just one more day of you looking at me like I was enough exactly as I was." "You were enough," Hannah said quietly. "That's what you don't understand. The person you were with me, that was enough. But I wasn't being all of me." "No. But were you being a real part of you?"
Tyler nodded slowly. "The most real part I've been in years?" They sat in silence for a moment. "I quit Café Lumière," Hannah finally said. Tyler looked stricken. "Hannah, you didn't have to." "Yes, I did. I needed to make choices that were mine, not influenced by you or your guilt or your money." "I understand." Hannah opened her laptop and turned it to show him her business plan. "I'm doing it. The bookstore cafe. I've saved enough for a small space in Brooklyn. Nothing fancy. But it's mine." Tyler looked at the screen, at her careful projections and floor plans, and his face softened. "It's perfect. You're going to change people's lives. That's the goal." "Hannah," Tyler said carefully, "I know you don't want my money, but I have resources, connections, experience with this kind of business. If you wanted help, not a handout, but genuine partnership, mentorship, I would be honored to offer that, completely separate from anything personal between us." "Why would you do that?" "Because I believe in you," Tyler said, "and because I want to support your dream whether or not you ever forgive me." Hannah closed the laptop. "I don't know if I can trust you again." "I know."
I don't know if we can go back to what we had. We can't, Tyler agreed. It would have to be something new, something built on complete honesty. Would you be able to do that? Be completely honest with me about everything. Tyler met her eyes. Yes. It scares me, being that vulnerable, but I would rather be terrified and honest with you than safe and dishonest. Hannah took a shaky breath. I'm still angry at you. You should be. I'm still hurt. I know. And I'm still not sure this can work. Tyler nodded. What would you need from me to even consider trying? Hannah thought about that. Time. Real time, not rushed reconciliation. I need to see that you can be honest, even when it's hard. I need to know that the Tyler I fell in love with wasn't just a character you played. I need to meet Tyler Ashford and decide if I can love him too. That's fair, Tyler said. More than fair. And I need you to understand that I'm not the same person I was before. I'm not the girl who's grateful for crumbs of affection. I know my worth now. If we do this, it's as equals. Absolutely, Tyler said. I've never seen us as anything but equals, Hannah. That's what I loved about you. You never treated me like I was above or below you. Just human. Hannah felt something shift in her chest, a small crack in the wall she had built. There's something I need to tell you, she said. Something I realized over these weeks. What? When I think about the time we spent together, I don't just remember the hurt. I remember laughing until I cried. I remember feeling seen and understood. I remember believing that I had found someone who got me in a way no one else ever had. And I hate that you lied, but I don't hate the time we had. I can't. It mattered too much. Tyler's eyes were bright. It mattered to me, too. More than I can explain. So here's what I'm proposing, Hannah said. We start over. Really start over. No pretending the past didn't happen, but no trying to recreate it either. We go on actual dates. We have real conversations about your life and mine. We take it slow. And if at any point I feel like you're not being honest, I'm out. No second chances. I can do that, Tyler said immediately. And you need to talk to a therapist about why you felt you needed to hide yourself. Because that's not healthy, Tyler, for you or for anyone you're in a relationship with. You're right, I'll do that. And I'm keeping my own apartment, my own life, my own dreams. I'm not getting swept up in your world. If this works, we figure out how to blend our worlds together. Tyler smiled, and it was the first real smile Hannah had seen from him in months. I wouldn't want it any other way.
Hannah stood up. I need to get to my shift at the diner. Can I walk you? Tyler asked. Just to the subway? Hannah considered, then nodded. Okay. They walked together through the Queens streets, not holding hands, but close enough that their arms occasionally brushed. It wasn't the easy intimacy they had once shared, but it was something. A beginning, maybe. At the subway entrance, Tyler stopped. Thank you for giving me a chance. I know I don't deserve it. You're right, Hannah said. You don't. But maybe love isn't about deserving. Maybe it's about choosing to be brave, even when you're scared. I'm terrified, Tyler admitted. Good, Hannah said. So am I. Maybe that means we're actually being honest for once. She went down the subway stairs, and at the bottom she turned back. Tyler was still standing there, watching her go. Hey, Tyler, she called up. Yeah? The next time we have coffee, you're buying. And not because you're rich, because it's your turn. Tyler laughed, and the sound carried down the stairs like a promise. Deal. 3 months later, Hannah stood in an empty storefront in Brooklyn, measuring walls and imagining shelves. Tyler stood beside her, holding the tape measure, offering suggestions when she asked for them, and staying quiet when she needed to think. They had been dating, really dating, for 2 months. Dinners where they talked about everything: his childhood, her dreams, his struggles with anxiety, her fears about failure. Therapy sessions that Tyler attended weekly and sometimes discussed with her when the insides felt relevant. Slow rebuilding of trust through consistent honesty and presence. It wasn't perfect. Hannah still had moments of doubt. Tyler still had habits of secrecy he had to actively work against. But they were trying. Really trying. "What do you think?" Hannah asked, gesturing at the space. "Too small?" "It's perfect," Tyler said. "Intimate. Exactly what you described." Hannah smiled. "I'm going to call it Lumiere."
Tyler looked at her, surprised. "After the cafe?" "After the light," Hannah corrected, "because that's what this place will be. A little light in people's days." Tyler set down the tape measure and pulled her close. "I love you," he said, "not because you're kind, though you are, not because you're brilliant, though you are that too. I love you because you make me want to be braver, more honest, more human." Hannah looked up at him. "I love you too, the real you, even the parts that are messy and complicated and still figuring things out." They kissed in the empty storefront that would become Hannah's dream, in the neighborhood where they had once walked together pretending to be people they weren't. But now they were just themselves, imperfect, honest, trying. And that, Hannah thought, was the greatest luxury of all. Sometimes people enter our lives wearing masks. Sometimes those masks hide deep wounds and desperate loneliness. Sometimes the kindness we offer without question becomes the bridge between who someone is and who they want to be. And sometimes, if we're brave enough to forgive, wise enough to demand truth, and strong enough to walk away if we don't get it, we discover that love isn't about perfection. It's about seeing someone fully, flaws and fortune alike, and choosing them anyway. That's the real story. Not of a poor waitress and a hidden millionaire, but of 2 lonely people who found each other on a rainy day and decided, despite everything, that honesty and love were worth fighting for. The rest is just details. What's your rating for this story? Leave it in the comments from 0 to 10.